In this video we are going to take a closer look at the first Munitorum Field Manual for Warhammer 40k 10th edition that got released a couple of days prior to the official launch of 10th edition. In the first part, we will go through all the relevant points for the generic Deathwatch datasheets and how well they transitioned from 9th edition. In the second part, we will then do some Mathhammer regarding our kill teams in an attempt to find out which compositions are going to work out best for us from a points perspective. Worry not, we will of course also include Kill Team Cassius. Lastly, there will be a quick wrap up of what has been covered.
Welcome to SwissHammer, your channel for modeling in Warhammer 40k. My name is Tammer, and I will be guiding you through this video.
Before we dive right into the Munitorum Field Manual version 1.0, a quick reminder that in the previous episode I did a full rules review for our freshly released Deathwatch Index. If you have not checked it out yet, the link is in the description. There you go, Philip. For the purposes of this video, I will be mainly focusing on the points perspective. As far as the actual kill team rules are concerned, I will be releasing full kill team guides as a mini-series in the near future. Either way, if you guys happen to have any imminent rules related questions, feel free to drop a comment. Now, for the Munitorum Field Manual itself, for me the perhaps biggest surprise was the move from points per model to points per unit size. As we no longer have combat squads in 10th edition, there are basically two ways to fill a unit, either at the maximum or at the minimum size, and both these points values are then listed separately. For the large majority of models, this is a straightforward matter of half the unit size costs half the price of the maximum size, with the one exception that I could find being Devastators, where the initial 5 models cost more, which makes sense as the initial 5 come with far greater benefits than the rest. I want to specifically stress this point because of what is going to follow later when we will be looking at our kill teams. But anyway, listing both values does of course make it easier to quickly get the required point values. Along those same lines, we are no longer paying for war gear either, and while 9th edition already set the stage for this in many ways, now literally all war gear is free. For the point specifically, looking at our two unique characters, the Watchmaster and Captain Artemis, the good news is that both of these turn out to be competitive in their own way. In an edition where many of the Space Marine datasheets got discounted, our Watchmaster remained at his 115 points, which is still good given his two excellent abilities. I am expecting to see this one leading a Proteus kill team or even Deathwatch Veteran squads in competitive play. Much more of a surprise is Watch Captain Artemis, very affordable at 75 points only, 5 points lower than a Captain equivalent, and his ability to double play a stratagem in the same phase, as well as allowing the unit he's attached to the usage of stratagems when battle shock, makes him a great addition to any Deathwatch list. Then moving on to the Deathwatch Veteran squad, my personal highlight of this edition, as I think that these will be a staple of our competitive lists in 10th edition. 20 points per model reverts the huge price bump they received in late 9th edition due to their free war gear, but the good news is that they actually get to keep most of the war gear. Combined with the shift that we are likely going to see in our army lists, aka fewer kill teams, Vets have basically everything we want for a good all-rounder unit. Good base cost, plenty of decent war gear options, battle line with an OC value of 2, the kill team keyword for synergy with the majority of our detachment stratagems, they really got the full package here. More on this a bit later. Both veteran bikers and Deathwatch Terminators are also competitively priced, the former getting their unjustified points bump from late 9th edition reversed, and while the Deathwatch Terminators went up in price, they also benefit from the general Terminator rework. Last but not least, before moving on to the kill teams, the Corvus Blackstar went back up by 30 points to a total of 180, but with the reworked stats line and the ability to disembark its cargo after moving, which can be a full kill team of any combination, I think this one will definitely see some play. With the generic datasheets out of the way, let's have a look at the actual kill teams, and this is where matters get a little complex. Just like with the regular datasheets, kill teams come at a fixed min and max value, following the exact same calculations, aka half the size means half the points cost. Unfortunately, I think this is where we are seeing the limitations of this new points model, and where simplified but not simple comes to an end. Our 4 kill teams, the Fortis, Indomitor, Spectrus and Proteus, all pay a premium just for being a kill team. How can we tell? Well, I think what happened here is that GW calculated an average points value based on the more powerful datasheets that can be added past the initial 5 model tax, and took this as the price for a 10-man, then simply divided this value in half for the minimum squad size. But exactly because these initial 5 models are set in stone, this system fails. In practice, this means that for a 5-man version of each kill team, we are overpaying by 21% for the Fortis, 23% for the Indomitor, 22% for the Spectrus, and a grand total of 65% for the Proteus, just to get a worse version of intercessors, heavy intercessors, infiltrators or Deathwatch Veterans. Why worse versions? Well, because in each and every instance, the overall kill team rules are worse than what these datasheets would get by default on their own. But Spectrus Doctrine redeploy? Yeah, on overpriced infiltrators without the Omni-Scrambler's ability. If they had the latter, I would personally consider it, but they don't. In short, do not run 5-man kill teams at their current points, you are grossly overpaying for overall worse rules. GW really needs to address this by setting the 5-man kill team points at the same values as the original datasheets, at which point one can decide whether one prefers the original rules or the kill team ones. There is always a trade-off anyway. Moving on to max-sized kill teams, where fortunately things start to look a little better. Due to the nature of paying a premium, which again I believe they calculated based on average across all datasheets involved, we have to be mindful about which datasheet combination equals roughly the points cost of the kill team. Unsurprisingly, this turns out to be exactly as it happened with the Deathwatch Veterans and the War Gear in 9th edition. We kind of have to go for the most expensive picks in order to break even. For the Fortis kill team, the way to do this is taking the mandatory 5 intercessors, 2 outriders and 3 hellblasters, at which point we end up at a 7% discount. If we are going for 1 outrider and 4 hellblasters, we break even. Any other combo is a points loss. For the Indomitor kill team, 5 heavy intercessors, 2 aggressors, 2 inceptors and 1 eradicator result in a 7% discount, and this turns out to be a very nice combo anyway. Due to the limit of 0 to 2 models for all 3 additional datasheets, we could also go with 2 eradicators at the cost of either an inceptor or an aggressor, which still results in a small points gain. Then for the Spectrus kill team, by going for 5 infiltrators, 2 eliminators, 2 suppressors and a single incursor, we are ending up at a 6% points discount and max out on the more powerful datasheets. Going for any other combo makes both the points and the effectiveness of this kill team only worse. Then last and perhaps most drastically, there is no way to break even in points on the Proteus kill team. At its most expensive loadout, aka 5 Deathwatch Veterans, 4 Terminators and 1 Veteran Biker, we are overpaying by 11%, though one could argue that this is kind of breaking even, as we can load 4 heavy weapons on the Vets and 3 heavy weapons on the Terminators, which is superior to what these individual squads would get at minimum size. Either way, The main takeaway here is that as it currently stands, competitive kill team compositions are rather limited and strictly reserved to 10-man units only. Shame on you, GW. But wait, aren't we forgetting about Kill Team Cassius? Now this one is interesting as well. Kill Team Cassius now consists out of 8 Deathwatch Veterans, and hilariously enough, the former librarian got demoted to 1, then 1 Terminator, 1 veteran biker, and the already attached Chaplain Cassius, aka 11 models, at the price of 255 points. Now, the good news is that the weapon loadouts are less of a mess when compared to 9th edition, as some datasheets got streamlined, but they are still running far from optimal loadouts in the age of free wargear. In comparison, if we were to run the closest datasheet equivalents, aka 8 Deathwatch Veterans, 1 Deathwatch Terminator, 1 veteran biker, and a regular chaplain, we would end up at 300 points, meaning that Kill Team Cassius gets a theoretical discount of 15%, but again, in practice, they are simply running worse loadouts on the vets, which make the main bulk of this kill team. If we were to compare Kill Team Cassius to 10 Deathwatch Veterans plus a Chaplain, the discount shrinks to a meager 6%, at which point I would simply run the 10 Vets plus Chaplain version. As it currently stands, however, Kill Team Cassius does get devastating wounds on all melee weapons while the Chaplain is alive, and they also come with the default Deep Strike ability. Assuming that devastating wounds remains as strong as it currently is, this might just push Kill Team Cassius up to the level where it is playable enough. What a time to be alive! All in all, the good news is that from a purely points perspective, all generic Deathwatch datasheets are competitive, and all the kill teams have a viable combo at 10 models. On the other hand, the very unfortunate news is that kill teams at 5 models currently don't work. The most extreme example are the Deathwatch Veterans, in which case we would be paying 65% more for a flat-out worse version. Well, I don't think that GW could possibly that bad at balancing. I think they simply did not look at this specific problem, but rather applied the let's halve the cost without thinking further. In order to make 5-man kill teams playable, the base unit cost needs to be equal to the corresponding datasheet, in which case we can pick between 2 versions, which would create some great variety for our lists. For Kill Team Cassius, while the points check out for them, and I personally consider them clearly more playable than before, I still don't think that they are going to see tournament play, simply due to the time it takes to dice roll through the different profiles. To wrap things up, over the course of the video, we have looked at the release of the first Munitorum Field Manual for Warhammer 40k 10th edition and what it means for the Deathwatch. As far as the generic datasheets go, I am positively surprised on multiple levels. While the Watchmaster remains at the same points, he comes with decent abilities that make him well worth bringing along. Captain Artemis on the other hand is very cheap at 75 points, and his ability to double play a stratagem, as well as allowing the unit he's attached to using stratagems while battle shock, could see him find his way into competitive lists. Our Deathwatch Veterans essentially get the full package in terms of points, war gear and rules. I highly recommend investing into these guides outside of kill teams at this point. For the rest, veteran bikers, Deathwatch Terminators and the Corvus Blackstar are all decent as well. Unfortunately, when it comes to our kill teams, GW did not think the whole points based on squad size fully through, which results in 5-man kill teams being completely unplayable from a points perspective. They are not only overpriced, but pretty much always come with straight out verse rules. My recommendation is not to take these for the time being. For the 10-man version, fortunately a viable combo exists for every kill team, purely from a points perspective, and I will be diving into their actual viability in my upcoming Kill Team Guide mini-series, where I will be covering each kill team in greater detail. So that's it for the release of the Munitorum Field Manual for Warhammer 40k 10th edition and what it means for the Deathwatch. What do you guys think about our new points values? And which units are you going to include into your upcoming lists? Are you as hyped about Deathwatch Veterans as I am? Or are you going for some Primaris instead? Let me know in the comments. Then finally, if you made it this far and I still have your attention, if you like my content, any additional support is greatly appreciated as it helps me invest into future videos. For that, I have both a Ko-fi as well as a Patreon page, links are in the description. Furthermore, I would also like to mention that there is a SwissHammer Facebook page where I will be posting links to my videos as well as articles I find of interest. I do read a lot about the hobby, but not all of it will always end up as its own video. I look forward to seeing you there as well. As always, thank you very much for watching, guys. Your continued support is greatly appreciated. I hope you have been enjoying this video, give me a thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again and see you next time.